Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network. KingofPodcasts.com.
Major media companies are going to shuffle away from going all in on streaming.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
And welcome to the program. This is King of Podcasts here with you with another Broadcasters Podcast. Here we are once again. We are back at it because of the movie studios and major media companies making changes. So back in 2020 that the real approach to go all in on streaming was apparent because, they thought 5 years ago, nobody's going back to the movie theaters. I think the networks, nobody's really watching much of TV shows on the networks anymore. Well, I think that the experiment for going all in on streaming has finished. Because now we're going to a hybrid model. The media companies are starting to realize, that whole idea of, putting out a movie, if it was in the theater, and maybe not even putting it out in the theaters first, and then eventually put it over on streaming. Remember they had that whole idea of, let's just put it at the same time. Remember when Max did that, where they did simultaneous release of the movie in theaters and the release on streaming during COVID. But then they also had, people like Peacock that'll go ahead and release a movie. And when we have it in the theaters, or there's just those that the movie studios, the major media companies said, well, we're just going to go ahead and put them on our streaming service exclusively. And the content and the idea of putting real big money on content, quality content, if it's going to be quality content, and then moving it to streaming immediately so that there's exclusive content, well, I guess that's only Netflix. Because at the end of the day, there's a reason why Netflix is able to get all these sponsors or all these subscribers. Because what they're doing is they're not putting out the best quality of content. They're just putting out a lot of content. In streaming, that's what it is. It's like empty calories. It's disposable. And that's what you're really getting over there. You might be getting some things with some talent, with some things that are in here. Maybe they're like more foreign related with no stars that you really know of. And then you'll get a following that will get a show viral, and somehow, some way, we'll hear something about it. But then how many times have we heard about Netflix that something takes off because, it's a show that was out there already? And then what happens? Hey, remember when Suits did that? Suits was like the biggest thing in the world. And all of a sudden, here comes NBC Universal. Let's go ahead and just revisit Suits. And of course, they give it half a season and it tanks. Because you can't go back and do that show again thinking you can just go and put the name Suits on it, play the quirky little intro to the show, make Stephen Amell act like Harvey Specter, and expect it to go and work. No, didn't. So we're going to go into that. A whole report on that tonight, among other things. But that's really the approach now, is that the theaters are going to start being more important again. Because the proof is in the pudding about how well movies are performing. Disney can go and attest to that. So there's some commentary out there. We'll go ahead and bring it all up to you tonight. I want to go ahead and give you an announcement, too, that I have been putting out some additional interviews I've been doing with people here for the Broadcasters Podcast. I just decided to go and do some extra interviews that would be pertinent to the format. So I started to get myself into the mood of starting to talk to people that were in the radio space and talking to them about various areas of where they are now. So last week, I pushed out an interview of the weekend on the radio host Carol that is out there, Carell, that is now, he's still in podcast, in the podcast world, but was very prominent in Los Angeles and San Francisco on the radio there, especially talk radio, and also music radio as well. Let's make that point clear too. But it was a good interview. I put that out there. You can find it at kingofpodcasts.com or my YouTube channel. And this week, I'll do the same thing again with another interview I did with Joe Pardavila. He was originally a producer, started off as a production assistant or intern at WPLJ in New York, the big FM radio station there that hosted Scott Shannon and Todd Pettengill in the morning, Scott and Todd in the morning, for nearly 20 years there, which the show was legendary in the market. And he gives us some stories about what happened during that time in radio, some thoughts about how radio and podcasting are meshed together. And also we get to hear more about what he's been doing in his Good Listen series, which is based on the book Good Listen, Creating Memorable Conversations in Business and Life. So he's all from that, and that's really great. Public figure, podcaster, writer, author of Good Listen, and so much more. You'll hear that interview coming up. Just look for it over the weekend. I'll have it posted at kingofpodcasts.com. Saturday, you'll be able to look for it, and I'll also have it on the YouTube channel as well. So let's get into what we have with the report on the major studio content spending in 2025 and beyond. So, growth at all costs are here. The streaming wars has ended. So, the idea that these major studios were going to be able to get their streaming services up off the ground, get hundreds of subscribers like Netflix, take over Netflix's bottom line, and maybe the control of the market and do something like that. So, but the problem is they can't just abandon their linear outlets. They can't just say we can't do that. So it's a complex transition for them. Now, global content spending in 2025 by streaming services, which was projected at $95 billion, is going to surpass commercial broadcasters in the U.S. Now, studios are moving from a strategy of content quantity to content quality and focusing on high-impact, franchise-driven intellectual property, live sports, and more strategic licensing of third-party content to bolster their offerings. Linear TV, by the way, has been positioned more as a valuable cash generator to fund the streaming pivot and a crucial marketing platform for driving audiences to digital services. It's a hybrid. So we know that what is being done right now is very strategic among the major movie studios. They're all making changes now to take their linear formats, their linear properties, and moving them into a secondary company, separate of the other company. So when you have the big movie studios, they will have their streaming services and their other ancillary properties there. Meanwhile, they're going to have a separate company that's going to hold all their cable networks. NBC Universal's right now, they're right now exploring that idea. Warner Brothers Discovery has now introduced global networks into their fray. Paramount will probably do the same thing very much soon. And that's the plan of all of them, is to branch them out. Because they might be up on the sales block, that people will go ahead, there might be companies that might consider, with this separation, that they'll be positioned so that they can be put up for sale. The news networks are going to be up for sale. You'll have various cable channels that will be brought up in a bundle that'll be put for sale for some of these other organizations out there that want to get into media, or they want to just go ahead and add to their portfolio. They might just buy these out. So it's a very big change in cable programming, and we'll see what they're going to do and how it will change. So first of all, the trends we're seeing right now with the overall studio structure, the strategy, is after heavy losses to acquire subscribers. Wall Street's focus has been now entirely shifted to the bottom line. Every content decision is now scrutinized for its return on investment. Streaming is the undisputed future, but spending growth is slowing. Now companies are going to make calculated bets rather than greenlighting vast slates of programming. They're not going to spend the programming on content that's going to go right to streaming. They're not doing it anymore. And part of it was with some companies like Apple or Amazon, they're doing it to go ahead and supply, even though Tim Cook will say the otherwise, that they are trying to go make sure that their platforms are being utilized. So Prime is doing as much as they can to get people to stay on that platform and to subscribe. I know that because I got my subscription coming up in July. It's going to renew for a year. And $139 is not cheap, but it's there, and I'm going to keep it on. A new role of linear and theatrical, where linear networks are still managed in decline, but they still generate significant cash flow and still reach larger, older audiences. And their primary role is to maximize profit to reinvest in streaming. Now, theatrical releases are still being reserved now for major event films that can launch franchises and drive downstream value on streaming platforms. We're seeing more now that with some of the ideas of some intellectual property and thinking they can go ahead and create secondary programming that can be then splayed all over their streaming platforms has not worked out well. Specifically Disney with Marvel, Star Wars, DC, Harry Potter. That's their idea of that, is because they're trying to go through and they try to put all these different products out there. And then you start seeing Marvel movies that are coming out that start looking like TV shows. And that's not a good thing. Or then Star Wars putting out a series that, they might have put so many millions of dollars into the episodes, but now Disney's no longer going to be spending that kind of money. Andor is going to be the last streaming series that's going to get a significant amount of money for their content, which is not going to happen again. Because Disney's going to go and focus more on movies that are going to be in theatrical release. Now, besides high intellectual property value, that's the safer bet than new unproven concepts. I listened to a book right now on the must-see TV aspect of NBC and how they put it together. And the idea that you could still have meetings with the programming executives that might give a particular opinion about what a show should be in development and what their testing will say. And then damn be the testing and damn the broadcast executives where the producers decide, no, we're going to stick with this. We're going to stick with these stars. We're going to stick with this concept and go with it. And there's been times where they're right. Then you have live sports, the last bastion of appointment viewing, a powerful tool for attracting and retaining subscribers on both linear and streaming, and ad-supported tiers. So hybrid subscription models with advertising are becoming the norm. We saw that from last year. A new revenue stream and offering consumers lower price entry points. So studio by studio, Walt Disney Company comes first. They're trying to get their turnaround plan going in, leveraging its unparalleled intellectual property and parks divisions. They have had cost cutting in traditional media to fund a focused content slate for streaming services. So in 2025, Disney, Hulu, and ESPN, specifically for the bundle they probably put together, has caused that direct-to-consumer segment now to finally reach profitability. They're starting to make money with it, but they got to grow it. So now content spending is being consolidated around Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars. They want to move away from general entertainment on Disney Plus and strengthen Hulu for more adult-oriented content. And Hulu onto the Disney app is central to the strategy, creating a single powerful streaming hub. So Disney Plus and Hulu are going to be combined, and they're going to put an approach for how this is going to work. ESPN will have their own standalone streaming service coming up in late 2025, a major pillar of future growth. They're going to try to capture cord cutters and sports fans directly while still protecting the linear ecosystem. And the price they're going to pay for that, I can only imagine. For all that. Linear networks are being managed for profit and cash flow, so fewer original scripted shows and lower cost unscripted programming instead, and live events. That goes for ABC, ESPN, FX. So I don't know what they're going to do with FX. Like, they still got The Bear, they still got other series that are on, Snowfall. I don't know how they're going to pull this off. I mean, there's going to be some shows that are going to be leveraged more for streaming, but they're going to be actually started on FX, as they have been. So now there are theatrical releases they've been doing, which would have been on Disney Plus, Mufasa the Lion King, and Moana 2. They were originally Disney Plus projects that got moved instead back to theatrical. Disney's now betting on a less is more approach, focusing on investment on the biggest brands for a profitable integrated streaming future. For Netflix, they're planning a content spend of $18 billion in 2025. They're going to broaden their entertainment offerings to keep their massive global subscriber base engaged. So they're trying to diversify now. Well, while they have the original films and series, they're making new inroads into new areas. They're trying to get into live sports and events. We've been seeing that right now. It's not been working so great so far, but they're trying. NFL Christmas games, WWE. Now they're doing events for MMA outside of UFC. There's gaming now, so they're going into a mobile gaming division, trying to add it as an added value proposition to subscribers to stay on. More international content. Local language productions. Recognizing that global growth depends on catering to regional tastes. And they're looking to double ad revenue in 2025 because then they have their ad-supported tier. For Warner Brothers Discovery, they're going through a strategic realignment. And now we have the plans where Streaming studios are going to be one division. The other one's global networks, which is all the cable networks. So the plan will be streaming studios will be HBO Max, Warner Brothers Pictures, and DC Studios, and the HBO Max platform, because Max is going to be reverted back to HBO Max as a streaming service name. Scaling HBO Max globally, centering on HBO's premium brand identity, major theatrical films, and leveraging huge IP like DC and the Harry Potter universe. And they're also going to continue heavy investment in high-end scripted series. The Last of Us is one of those. Movies like a Minecraft movie, and building out cinematic universes. So the global networks, that's CNN, TNT networks, Discovery, and Eurosport, they're being managed for cash flow and stability, and content spending will be more conservative, prioritizing live sports and unscripted programming, which are cost-effective and draw large, consistent audiences. So less scripted shows on linears, which has still been the plan, but then also the plan on spending money on content is going to be more towards not for streaming right away, because while they're going to try to go and continue to scale more subscribers into these streaming services, if they can get more money in the movies going out there and they can get more ad revenue, they're going to do that. So the traditional ways of making money are going to be prioritized over utilizing streaming to get the most out of that. So streaming subscriptions, they're there, but they want to make money on the content they're creating before it hits streaming, and they want to make money on the advertising that they can get some of these subscribers to buy in on, because they don't want to buy the full package to buy commercial free, because it's just too much. NBC Universal, they have a hybrid strategy. They are leveraging linear assets to build Peacock, and they're trying to reduce Peacock's losses and find synergies between new and old platforms. So Peacock's had quite a few losses in subscribership. They're relying heavily on live sports, exclusive NFL games, and extensive Olympics coverage. So they're spending money on the content, but for sports. Next day access to NBC and Bravo remains a key driver of viewership. Original content investment is highly selective, focusing on projects with clear paths to profitability. Now, they're linear and theatrical divisions. That's NBC, USA, Bravo, and Universal Pictures. So linear ad revenue is declining, and the channels remain important for live news, sports, and reality programming, but they're being increasingly used as promotional funnels for Peacock. Now, Universal Pictures is doing pretty well with their movies that have been putting out, with the movie Wicked, and the one they had last year, the one they're going to put out this year, and creators like Christopher Nolan that are going to be coming around doing movies for them. It's a critical theatrical success they're seeing is very critical for their ecosystem. So they're going to work with the slow decline of NBC networks and other cable networks that they have, and try to build Peacock to be sports heavy and cost conscious. Paramount Global, which is going to be merged with Skydance very soon, they're going through industry headwinds, workforce reductions, and ongoing merger and acquisition discussions. Now, for Paramount Plus, they're going to lean as to establish franchises like Star Trek, Mission Impossible, and Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone universe. They have their live sports with NFL and CBS as a critical component for driving subscriptions, and trying to achieve domestic profitability in streaming in 2025. So they're hoping to be profitable coming up. For their linear and theatrical areas, there's a lot of cost cutting in the linear division. TBS is still a powerful asset due to the NFL and strong unscripted slates, but cable networks face significant challenges. Yeah, and the one thing is, they got CBS Studios that's running all their content. So for NCIS and all the Dick Wolf stuff that's going on with FBI, they continue to cut away on what they're doing. It's not helping them much. And they're struggling with that. Amazon Prime Video and MGM Studios. For Amazon, it's just trying to make sure the Amazon Prime ecosystem, the subscribership, stays strong. So now they're investing billions in big budget, global appeal content like Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and Fallout. Now, there's more that's going to be coming up on the theatrical side. We're going to talk about that very shortly. They have their MGM acquisition with a deep movie library, major film IP like James Bond. They are investing across all genres for both streaming and theatrical releases. Challengers and Red One were examples. They now are in the NBA deal with an 11-year NBA rights package starting in late 2025, and also adding to a successful Thursday Night Football package. So Amazon's continued to spend heavily on premium content of all types to enhance the value of a Prime membership and dominate the future of streaming advertising. Look, The Accountant 2 was a movie they put out in theaters. It did, 30 to 45 days, and now it's moved directly to Prime, and I can go watch The Accountant 2 now and watch it on Prime after I already watched it 2 months ago in the theater, because I can do that. So that's the full report right there on the studios. So let's go into what they also have here with some of the individual studios and what they've said so far. So Amazon I just mentioned, and now they are going to be heavily invested in theatrical, and they're not holding any content back. So in 2026, they plan to bring a $1 billion slate. They will be releasing 20 movies. 10 will be theatrical, and the budget for that whole slate will be $1 billion, according to George Wilkinson, International TV Distribution Manager of Amazon MGM Studios Distribution, speaking at the NEM Market and Conference in Dubrovnik. So he says they are heavily invested in theatrical. So they're not holding any content back from the market for that slate they have coming for next year. So this past year, they had Red 1, A Working Man, and Accountant 2. Went out for theatrical first. They have upcoming features right now later in the year with Heads of State, The Pick Up and Play Dirty. Those are streaming movies, not in the theatrical sense right away. They're not going to do that. They also have the sci-fi adventure Project Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling. And they have a new heist drama, Crime 101, and also a Masters Universe also coming up in their whole set. There'll be a new season to Lord of the Rings of Power. 2 seasons available for distribution. The third is coming to market. Now, Wilkinson reminded the audience that this particular Lord of the Rings series, it will be the most expensive TV series ever made in the history of time. $60 million per episode. And also on the TV side, they will continue to have the Citadel franchise and Daniel Day Kim's spy thriller Butterfly coming out. On the Disney side of things, Bob Iger, the CEO there at Disney, says linear and streaming are a winning combination. He talked to CNBC on Tuesday on the Squawk Box and says, quote, "What we've determined is the combination of both is actually a winning combination for us. Streaming and linear." And when he was asked about the spinning off of the cable networks for their business, he says, quote, "I think it gives us a stronger hand to stay in that business. When you think about it, the spin-off companies won't have the assets from a streaming perspective that we will have. I think that gives us an advantage." So among the other companies that are out there, HBO Max is going to launch direct-to-consumer in multiple new countries. They will be in many countries in Europe now, mostly the Eastern Bloc. Netflix is going to spend, by 2029, $1.1 billion in Spanish originals. Ted Sarandos mentioned that Spanish titles have generated over 5 billion hours of viewing on Netflix. All of them have become instantly recognizable parts of the global culture. Now, Upfronts Week is going on right now in Hollywood, and all the major media companies were promoting their broad portfolios with varying degrees of success. Live sports is still a driving factor in the conglomerates of programming strategies. Movies are now part of Upfronts now. And a decline in scripted programming on broadcast networks' fall schedules says the TV business continues to evolve with some of the biggest scripted bets of next season, which is like The Office, the follow-up series, The Paper, going to streaming instead of being on network television. So some of the things that Variety learned from the Upfronts and their reporting was that the entertainment business is in rough financial shape. Peak TV, which had blank checks for massive tentpole productions, the hundreds and hundreds of shows being produced or projects being done, it's over. Earnings have taken a hit. Layoffs have impacted thousands. Everyone's on the hunt for more cost-effective programming. So as we said, scripted programming is taking a big hit on the broadcast networks this coming season. Nearly all the major broadcasters have shifted their focus to unscripted programming and sports. ABC will only have 5 hours of scripted programming a week in the fall. Fox will have 4. NBC canceled 5 scripted shows with virtually no pilots in the works to replace them. CBS is the only one committed heavily to more scripted shows, but mostly were spin-offs. That includes Sheriff Country, Boston Blue, CIA, and Y Marshals. So scripted shows are costing more to make still, as they always do, and broadcast networks aren't drawing as nearly as much customers as streamers. So now NBC, with the NBA package they have now, they're going to eventize the return of NBA coverage on the network. Now, with broadcasting, what they can do is they will continue to do weekly procedurals and broad comedies. Both formats continue to be popular, but the networks don't seem to be any rush to find the next big show. And the spin-off or nostalgia reboot revival wave that was around is over. NBC axing Suits LA after 1 season, and the Night Court reboot follow-up also done after 3 seasons. Another theme of the upfronts they had was branding or rebranding in some cases, with names that lacked creativity. So Warner Brothers Discovery said that Max is going to go back to HBO Max again. Disney unveiled this ESPN streaming service, which will be called ESPN, and it will offer an unlimited plan that includes all ESPN networks and ESPN broadcasts on ABC for $30 a month. And it's actually more than what's being offered on ESPN Plus. Now, we know about NBC Universal and the spinoff of the cable networks. It's called Versant, housing brands like USA Network, Sci-Fi, CNBC, and MSNBC. And now movies are becoming more important at the upfronts, which is usually was always television and advertising for television. So now, feature films are playing a role in media company pitches to advertisers. NBC Universal talking about Wicked, their sequel Wicked for Good coming up. Amazon upfronted feature appearances by John Cena, Jason Momoa, David Bautista, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, talking about their upcoming films with Prime Video. They also mentioned there's going to be Amazon's Thomas Crown Affair reboot with Michael B. Jordan. And Jordan also revealing a series spin-off of the Creed film franchise that'll be also coming up on Amazon Prime. At Warner Bros. Discovery, they talked a lot about the work of the DC Universe with James Gunn and Peter Safran, DC TV shows like Peacemaker Season 2 and the upcoming Lanterns, and they also showed a brand new trailer for the new James Gunn directed Superman movie coming up, what is it, July 11th, I think it is? July 11th? And as we said, sports is going to be the big deal right now for the upfronts, and all for linear television, they're going to just start using it for live sports. So NBC is going to be the first one that's going to really make the big difference on that. So they now have an 11-year deal set for WNBA and NBA rights. And one of the things they talked about now is that Michael Jordan is going to come out of retirement. He's actually going to be part of the network's basketball coverage. Other traditional TV outlets have gone all in, and not just major players like the NFL, NBA, and NHL, but also any sports rights deal they can get their hands on. College level sports of all kinds and smaller leagues are getting their time in the spotlight. YouTube is going to live stream an NFL game for free in 2025. Amazon and Netflix are announcing major games for Thursday Night Football and the Christmas Day doubleheader, respectively. But then you got to ask yourself now, because of what all these studios are doing now, by really switching out what they're going to be doing with those linear channels, with the theatrical releases, all those things, the thing that still people are going to be asking for is, are people going to still be able to find quality content that they can go ahead and stream? Remember we had that whole idea of Quibi, which crashed and burned very quickly in 2020? There's been talk, and I've been hearing about this for a while now, but here's the thing. There is something to be said that the Quibi type model, even though it failed as it did, it came back in another form. Because now there are people that are working in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, but they're working on different content that's faster, shorter, cheaper, and quite literally overturns film and TV norms. There have been low budget and soapy, occasionally smutty, and sometimes nonsensical projects that are coming on now with some really interesting titles. The Alpha King and His Virgin Bride, Carrying His Babies, Stealing His Heart, and Mafia Daddy's Surprise Sextuplets. Yeah, so soap operas are coming back once again, and they've been back now in short form. Now, one of the studios that's doing very well in this kind of space is Crazy Maple Studio, a Sunnyvale, California-based company that owns the platform Real Short. Has 55 million monthly active users, most of them women. The company has been, at one point, started putting out 4 projects a month. Now it's more than 30. Majority of production work takes place in LA, with other projects going to hubs in New York, Atlanta, and Toronto. There are also rivals to the platform that include Drama Box, Net Short, and Good Short, all of which rank in the top 20 entertainment products on Apple's App Store. Yes, even now the telenovela folks at Televisa Univision, they're starting to go ahead and do micro dramas. And they're upfront in New York. They actually mentioned they're going to now use their VIX streaming service to do short form telenovelas. One top streaming executive says the service they work at is exploring right now adapting existing content that can be broken down into tiny chunks. A typical vertical series for the telenovelas are 50 to 80 episodes. They can either break down those series or create new content. Now, in the production style of these particular micro dramas that are being done now, 12-hour days are standard. A feature-length script might take just a week to shoot. Actors might get as few as 3 to 5 takes per setup to get their performance just right, according to the Hollywood Reporter. Productions try to keep budgets and therefore wages low, and so projects might fall below $300,000 per project and $500,000 if the company's trying a new concept. And the quality of the series, flashbacks are wildly implausible scenarios and expository dialogue abound. One source describes the writing style of these series as a lot of telling, not showing. Unions are starting to take notice now, as one IATSE leader is eyeing the format as his members, who are allowed to both work in union and non-union projects, take jobs in these verticals. They're under the radar as far as union goes because they're usually going for $800,000 to $1 million budget type projects. But the verticals like these micro formatted programs that Quibi was predicting that this was going to be happening, but they were just ahead of their time. Another person to talk to, the CEO of Surreal Studio Services, Wes Bailey, says that right now, verticals went from something that never happened to something that's probably representing somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of the shoots on his sound stages, and may even be over 50%. And in terms of verticals, we're seeing an increase of the amount of verticals that are going on as well. Again, up to 500 series. Now, verticals took off in Asia before the pandemic, before production heated up in the U.S., and shoot days for the online content category rose 25% year over year. A couple other things I want to bring up. One that I want to make mention of real quick that would be interesting. The first AI-related case with media is come into play now. Disney Universal filed a lawsuit against artificial intelligence startup Midjourney, accusing the company of copyright infringement. A 110-page complaint alleges that this company, that was founded in 2022, quote-unquote helped itself to copyrighted material to train its software, calling the company a bottomless pit of plagiarism. While authors, artists, record labels, and news organizations have all sued AI companies to protect their work, this is the first time for major Hollywood movie companies who have until now kept their grievances out of court. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if it becomes of anything more. But yes, AI coming into play, with the movie studios coming into play together on a lawsuit, that's a big deal. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what they're going to do. Let's segue to the music and the media now. Apple Music head Oliver Schuster spoke on a keynote at the NMPA's annual meeting on Wednesday says that, quote, as a company, we look at music as art. We would never want to give away art for free. It makes no sense to me. The NMPA is the National Music Publishers Association's annual meeting in New York. That's what they were doing. So Schuster says that, I think it's crazy that 20 years in, we still offer music for free. We're the only service that doesn't have a free service. As a company, we look at music as art. We will never want to give away art for free. He talked about how Apple Music's competitors offer free ad-supported tiers, including Spotify, which is the world's largest streaming service. Now, for Spotify, they said the company remains the largest revenue driver in the music industry, that the ad-supported tier helps draw in more fans who would then convert to the premium offerings instead. Which is why I'm on Spotify. I never decided to go and spend money on Apple Music. No, not at all. The multi-tier model that they have now is a key factor in consistently paying out more than every other retailer or streaming service annually. Beyond the dollars the ad-supported tier generates, more than 60% of premium subscribers began as ad-supported users. I was one of them. And then presenting them with opportunities to upgrade to a broader suite of premium features is our blueprint, and it's working. And it's true. At this NMPA conference, they also mentioned that Spotify and Amazon offering subscriptions as bundles with audiobooks has caused songwriters' royalties to drop. Let's go into podcasting and radio now. So there's a panel of podcast leaders that convened at the recent Millikan Institute Global Conference about the evolving definition of a podcast and the medium's shifting role in the media landscape. Asking the question, what is a podcast exactly? Jessica Cordova-Kramer, CEO of Limonada Media, said that, quote, everyone wants a podcast. No one wants to make a podcast. It's a lot of work, a good one anyway. True. That's why we are in the business of doing it for others. But that's what I do for a living, instead of doing my own content. Now, Kramer says it's all about the core audio experience, but the definition is fluid. It can involve video, it can involve social, involve live events, but the primary definition is that RSS feed that's coming into your ears from one of the awesome platforms. When asked about the role of video in podcasting's future, Ben Meiselas, co-host of the Midas Touch podcast, says that the role of community in podcasting success is that our podcast is a show that, to me, is fueled and built by a community. The community builds a podcast, and a podcast thrives and succeeds when it truly understands what they say. And the key word is simulcast. I think that's where this is all going. CAA's Josh Lindgren mentions that it's not one size fits all. That video is a growing segment of the podcast world. It's definitely going to keep growing, but it doesn't mean you can have a very successful business, and achieve your aims are doing the value in the podcast. That podcasters should consider video as entering an entirely different industry where distribution is different, monetization is different, including the way that advertising and sponsorship work. When it comes to me with video, it's fine because, look, YouTube is such a powerful platform for podcasting. If you don't have your content on YouTube, you have to be. It's a no-brainer. It really is. They also had on the founder of Wondery, Hernan Lopez, that says that most shows study on video are considered more often than audio-only shows just because of the way the algorithms work. But every creator has to look at that against the trade-offs. And more talk about audio here. The Trade Desk says now in a new review of research trends and in the recent study they put out, they're saying now that, quote, audio is proving to be a powerful and connective medium that marketers cannot afford to ignore. So eMarketer reports that consumers in 2024 spent 2 hours and 42 minutes a day with audio, accounting for 21.4% of total media time. Advertisers allocated just 4.5% of U.S. ad spend to audio media, which means you could be spending more money on audio for advertising because there's a big audience right there. 229 million people, or two-thirds of the population in the U.S., listen to digital audio in 2024, and that's going to continue to grow. The average U.S. listener spends 50 minutes each day with podcasts. With over 540 million global podcasts to choose from, it's up 50% since 2020. The Trade Desk reports that audio is a growing channel for consumers, has increasingly become a part of everyday life, and there's a clear opportunity to tap into an underinvested, highly engaged audience. There's more to it, but that's the gist of it. Now, there's technology that's out there that I was kind of interested by because I'm wondering if it would be any good at all. Since we know that radio at this moment, under the corporate structures, are not going to bring us back to giving us radio programming that's going to have a live local presence with real personalities and a very well thought out playlist of music. But maybe we'll get something out of this. The company Futuri, they're relaunching their interactive programming platform Tether under the brand Listener Driven Radio. They wanted to empower audiences by shaping their listening experience. So the platform features crowdsourced song voting via website and mobile app, personalized notifications, customizable branding, and enhanced audio imaging. So listeners can vote on their favorite songs via the station's website or mobile app, influencing the playlist in real time while adhering to the station's music strategy. That would be good as long as you have availability of songs that you can listen to. That will be very important, but we don't know about that. Like if you have the playlist that's going to be pretty big and will include new songs and things like that, if you have a larger playlist for the audience to go and tap into, then you get a better playlist of music. That's just not a bad idea. Users will receive alerts when their chosen songs or artists are about to play, boosting tune-ins and listener loyalty. We'll see how that works out. Like, do we care that one of your favorite songs is going to finally play? Like, okay, think about if you had this 30 years ago. You made a call on the request line, and you want to know that your song is going to play. Well, yeah, somebody calls you back and says, hey, your song's going to play next. No, I don't know if anybody cares about that. Stations can tailor the voting interface and visuals to align with their branding and sponsorships, making it cohesive. And they're going to utilize Real Worlds, which is a great service for jingles and for imaging. They're going to enhance the station sound by delivering captivating contest promos and intros. And current clients will see no disruption in service, and the platform's core features and functionality will remain intact. So that's one of the new ideas that you're going to come up now with, that maybe that companies will buy into listener-driven radio. Which I said, anyway, that is something you can do. I thought that might not be a bad idea, I guess. But, we'll see if they're going to work it at all. If any stations will buy into it. I'll be kind of curious about that. So that's your Broadcasters Podcast for this week. Come back next week. We'll do another great episode. And over the weekend, make sure to go and listen to my interview with Joe Pardavila and hear a great story about somebody that came in the radio and has done a lot with it, even coming out of radio after 20 plus years in the business. Come back next week for the Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, the content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.